I'm sick and tired of people wanting numpads, and I'll prove it to you right now. I'm going to enter the series of numbers without looking, just using the number. Don't look at my fingers though, because I don't know how to use the right fingers. We're getting weird keyboards these days. That's really the only way to compete, honestly, unless you want to make the cheapest board possible. And we know NeoKeys is probably going to take that market, or maybe some of the Zoom series. If you want a 60, 65, 75 TKL, there's so many options already, whether it be more budget or mid-range. If you want something different, that's where the Daring Run products come in. This is the Flip 6P. Why flip? It's literally a transformer. You see the numpad right here? It can also be on the left side as a southpaw. That's crazy. And you can also change the bottom. You can get HHKB or win keyless or just standard. We've seen this kind of like hot swappability of layout with the Tip 60, and it was pretty cool. There's an additional seam at the bottom, but I can live with it. All these features right here, and it's still only $149 in stock. Like actually in stock, like next week you can buy it and then it'll come in a few days. That's pretty crazy. So make sure you don't miss it. August 2024. Third week of August. It's the second week right now. I'm trying to rush this video out, but let's see if this little thing is worth it. To start from the top, we have very clean anodization, and I'll be honest with you, it's spectacular freaking. Like you get smudges maybe, but overall this anodization is very clean. This here is a dark gold color, and I'm very mature. I think doo-doo brown, but really is a very elegant brown. I knew this coming in, so this dark gold was just something I wanted to try. I wanted to see some anodization other than just black, silver. And the good thing is this prototype color, like the actual thing they made, is very close to the render, because sometimes the render doesn't match the final product very well. Don't worry, the dark gold brown is pretty much brown. I'm honestly pretty shocked at the anodization quality we get these days. Back then we could only get this quality out of Keycaps, and it's because they were using data center factories. Now we see it even in the budget line in stock boards. It's not grainy, it's not streaky, and it feels smooth to the touch. Like I don't even need to examine the anodization anymore unless there's visually some issues, and I don't see any issues right here. There's also RGB in the control, which is an indicator, and RGB indicators in the number. I don't know how the number indicators work, but they're there. In the win keyless configuration, because it's in the control, it makes less sense, but in the HHKB, because that has a blocker there, it will have a diffuser and it looks much more intentional. If only I could use HHKB. I love my RGB, but because it's kind of in a weird spot, I would probably just turn it off. The shape, however, is pretty boxy, right? We don't have that nice little cherry lip because this thing needs to flip around 180 to allow the numpad to sit on the left. So everything in here has to be reversible. Because of that, you gotta have symmetry, and you can't have that symmetry with a cherry lip. It's a lot like those jackets you had when you were young, where you could flip the inside out and have a different color. There are angles at the edges, so it gives it a more finished look. Matching the cheaper price, the weight on the board is smaller. Overall, you're not gonna have a huge weight out of this board. It's not gonna be light, but between this SS weight and the battery inside, because of the tri-mil PCB that I have right here, has a little bit of heft, feels good in the hand. It's not crazy heavy, it's not crazy light, so we're probably fine. I don't really care either way, as long as it's not purely an aluminum board without a weight, because there's also an intentional seam passed through the board. It's a contrasting mid piece to give it a nice elevated look. It matches with the SS weight. It's made out of aluminum. It's not thick, it's not dense, it's not heavy, but it provides some visual interest. I personally like it, but some people in the chat were not with it. Sometimes you want a smooth seamless side, sometimes you want some design in the side profile. As for the assembly, I personally don't think it was great. The keyboard is PCB mount, so there's silicone gaskets. The main part of the PCB, the 60% section, actually connects magnetically. So as soon as you slide it into the grooves in the case, ready to go. There was also the sandwich mount configuration, but we definitely needed the force brake. And in my opinion, the spacebar sounds a little bit weird. The problem is the numpad. The numpad uses pogo pins, so it doesn't have to be soldered, it doesn't have to be screwed in, nothing. It just has to make contact. And there lies the problem. The benefit is there's no JST or ribbon cables, but the problem is it's extremely sensitive. You have to make sure it lines up perfectly before you close the case, or else it just won't work. The first time I put it together, it actually didn't work at all. I had to open it back up and slowly maneuver it around and then slowly close it while the USB was plugged in, make sure the numpad still works, and then screw in from the bottom of the desk so that it doesn't move. And it was a hassle because if you don't connect the pogo pins, you won't be able to bridge across, and it won't connect, and it won't turn on, and it won't work. And you have to pay attention or else you'll screw it in, get excited, and the numpad won't work. Yeah, it's not connecting, bro. In terms of sound and feel, I was warned that this would be really hollow. When using the long pole Gateron cream sodas on PCB gasket mount, it sounded pretty good, even without any kind of foam, no PCB foam, no case foam, no PE foam, and not even force break. You have to remember though, long pole switches like Gateron cream sodas typically make boards sound less hollow. Feel was bouncing and fun because its PCB gasket mount is actually really nice to type on. The numpad and the main alphas have separate plates so they can flex individually. I didn't feel the need to immediately force break it to fix the hollowness until I did the next test, Plateless. While this is not advertised as Plateless, nor do I recommend it because it is hot swap, it is a PCB mount keyboard, so you could skip the plate and it will still work. So basically you remove the plate and then the PCB still mounts to the case. The switches will just go directly into the PCB, no plate. For this test we did OP blacks on the main section and then we did MX blacks on the numpad. It's confusing because in the video I did numpad and southpaw on the left. Without force break, it sounded okay. But when I did force break on the mid piece, top and bottom, it sounded amazing. Now I'll say the spacebar sounds really odd. It sounds much louder without the plate. So it doesn't mesh as well, but it is pretty nice and pretty fun to type on if you want to try it. Running plateless hot swap is a huge, your mileage may vary. It really depends on whether or not the switches can sit tightly into the PCB. I will say the OP blacks fit once. As soon as I took keycaps off, it took the switch out. So that's why you don't do plateless hot swap. I gotta also mention that this has a tri-mode PCB and Bluetooth if that's something you're into. The PCBs are 1.6 millimeters non-flex cut, so it's good to see. They finally learned that people don't want 1.2 millimeter flex cut PCBs because it sounds very thin. As for the final verdict, this is a weird keyboard. Numpad is typically reserved for work purposes, and having a numpad without F-row or dedicated arrows is very odd. Yes, you can use the arrows in the numpad, like right there, there's arrows, but it's under the numlock and it's really not intuitive to use. I would consider this a 60% plus keyboard. You can have the numpad on the plus on the right side or numpad plus on the left side. Think of it like a macro column. It's a little bit more useful than just having macros, also known as artisan holders. And for those who want a southpaw numpad, or maybe want to try it and not be married to it, you can try a southpaw. If you hate it, you can go back to regular. And if you're using regular and want to go to southpaw, you can just switch around. You don't have to buy anything extra. Aesthetically, this is pretty simple. The weight is very small, so it's kind of a con because you can probably get a bigger weight with other budget options. But this is a very unique option in the market and it's in stock. Overall, the sound of this board carries. I probably would use it with a plate. In a plate configuration, the spacebar and the alpha sound great. There's no odd sounds. H1's an F4, pretty solid. So I would definitely buy this to run it with a plate. Maybe if I'm bored, try plateless. Maybe if I'm bored, try southpaw. Maybe also buy the wind keyless blockers. Hey, there's so many options of configuration for an in-stock board at $149. $149 in stock. Probably worth trying out, right? That's, I know some people be like, $149, budget to me is $29. I'm like, okay, then the video is not for you. The product's not for you, I'm sorry. Being that this is not a group buy, it's gonna make a lot of people happy. So there it is, the Dare and Run Flip 6P. What do you think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.